Is he gone? Okay then. I know you guys have been patiently waiting, so let's not waste any time and move right into the last 4 robot masters of Mega Man 6 and see if they depict their supposed countries of origin culturally. So how about Flame Man and his supposed home of Saudi Arabia? Again, like Nightman's stage, we don't have many basic enemies that point to the country. However, the architecture itself is very Arabic, and there's oil. Lots of oil. Seriously, from the first screen of the stage, there's oil every few feet. To make matters worse, if a Flame Boy is able to ignite it, this mild annoyance turns into a one-hit kill. Most people at this point are saying, big deal, a lot of oil comes from the Middle East. What makes Saudi Arabia so unique? Well, my friend, Saudi Arabia is one of, if not the biggest exporter of the stuff. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration at EIA.gov, Saudi Arabia topped the charts by exporting almost 12 million barrels of Texas tea a day, and that's a lot of oil. I could talk about Flame Man's design, but again, I think the turban is pretty self-explanatory. In any case, with all the oil referencing, I think Flame Man and his stage do a pretty decent job at representing his home when it comes to level inspiration. Next, let's check out Windman and his possible country of origin, China. Now at first glance, there really doesn't seem that there's anything to link the designs of the stage or himself to China, but there are a few minute things. There are the Pandita enemies in the stage, and that's obviously modeled after the Honored Panda, and the level itself seems to be a modernized tower, and there are lots of towers in China, in particular the 4 Great Towers of China. The Yellow Crane Tower, the Pavilion of Prince Tang, the Yuyang Tower, and the Penglai Pavilion. But none of them seem to be obviously represented here. But let's look at Windman himself. Yeah, maybe he's just a knockoff of Airman, but look at this. See this little strand of what looks like a ponytail? This is called a queue, and it has a huge reference to China. Remember the movie Shanghai Noon? Remember why Jackie's character was so protective of his hair? That's what I'm talking about with Windman's hair. Now let me explain. See, back in the 17th century in China during the Qing Dynasty, adult Han Chinese did not cut their hair, which was in accordance to the classic of filial piety. Confucius was quoted saying, "We are given our body, skin, and hair from our parents, which we ought not damage." This idea is the quintessence of filial duty. Now, I don't know if the queue is what Confucius had in mind, but the law of the queue was very strict. If you didn't start trying to adapt to the style of a shaved head and a long tail within 10 days, you were executed. That's pretty harsh. After the Zhihai Revolution in 1911, the hairstyle was seen as an association with a fallen government and was abandoned. So yeah, just because a game only has a very small cultural hint, that doesn't mean that that one hint doesn't have a huge meaning. And while it is a small detail, it has a huge place in China's culture and history, and that's why I think Windman does a pretty darn good job of representing his country. Alright, so next up is Centaur Man, and oh boy, this one was a doozy. He supposedly comes from Greece, and there's a lot of skepticism about how in the world his level design or his design in general is related to the country. But man, you'd be real surprised what I found. So let's start with Centaur Man himself. He's a centaur, obviously. Many want to associate the centaur with being uniquely Roman, but the truth is, their origin is Greek. The Greek origin story of the centaur involves Ixion, a really bad dude who did some really bad stuff, but Zeus took pity on him. That is until he caught him making googly eyes at Hera. So he made a cloud nymph in Hera's image, and after he caught Ixion with the Hera clone, he chained him to a fiery wheel for all eternity. The cloud gave birth to Centaurus, the father of centaurs, and the rest is history. Now, I'm not sure if said history sees centaurs as cursed or not, but there are also Greek stories of good centaur, including the righteous immortal Chiron, who assisted well-known Greek heroes such as Achilles, Asclepios, and Actaeon. So, Centaur Man? Very Greek. How about that level? Yep, it sure is a water level. So what in the world does this have to do with Greece? Well, I firmly believe that this level is inspired by the lost city of Atlantis.
Fool! That city is believed to be the southwest of Spain. How in the world does it have any relation to Greece?
That would be because out of all of ancient history, it was Plato who seemed to be the most vocal about it. In the Critias, Plato wrote about the confliction between Atlantis and Athens. Long story short, when Atlantis failed to capture Athens, it sank into the sea. So while it may be a bit of a stretch, I really think Centaur's Man level design does have a lot of Greek inspiration. How about the enemies? While the Gabikyos are present here, there are 2 very notable enemies. First are the Pelikanu. What do pelicans exclusively have to do with Greece? Let me introduce you to Petros, the official mascot of Mykonos, a Greek island of the Cyclades. If Atlantis wasn't the inspiration here, maybe it was the Greek Isles. Who knows? But regardless, I think a pelican enemy makes a lot of sense, don't you? Lastly, there's the submarine flyer. If this level is in fact based on Atlantis, I would think there would be many submarine bots scouring the area trying to find any ruins. I don't know. Maybe Wily just got to him first. In any case, I think Centaur Man represents Greece pretty well, if not a little backhandedly. Last but certainly not least is Yamato Man, and boy is this guy chock full of Japanese references. First of all, the level. First screen, bam, Fuji. I know it isn't necessarily Mount Fuji, but come on, tell me that isn't what they're going for. And just look at the buildings. That's got Japan written all over it. Strangely enough, as you progress through the stage, it seems less and less Japanese, but maybe those rice paper walls over there are a reference. Who knows? But that's not the big reference here. Oh no, it's the enemies we gotta look at. First up is Shigaraki. Yeah, it's a big robotic tanuki, but what you may not know is that Shigaraki is actually a town in Japan that specializes in making tons and tons of tanuki statues and figurines. Next up is Benkei, who is obviously a reference to the warrior monk Benkei. Benkei was a big dude who collected the weapons of his fallen enemies. He actually fought the famous swordsman Yoshitsune, and upon his defeat became his guard and best friend. You might have also seen Benkei in other games like Orochi Warriors and Okami. Man, I really can't get away from those games, can I? Lastly, there's Gamarin and Gamadayu. This guy could be based off of several different things. First of all, Gama is basically toad in Japanese, and that obviously makes sense. Now, in Bunraku, which is a basic, traditional Japanese puppet theater, the Taiyu is the person who's not only responsible for narrating the story, but also the one expressing all of the characters, a controller, if you will. And it looks like this guy might fit that role pretty well, too. But the big reference here is that of the legendary Gama Sennin. Gama Sennin, also known as the Immortal Toad, was a hairless, warty-skinned man who had the ability to change into a toad. He also had a three-legged toad companion with him. He was thought to be immortal because he knew how to produce pills that would extend one's life. Then we have Yamato Man himself in his proud purple armor. I know a lot of people have said that purple is a color of death in Japan, but I haven't really seen that. White, yes, but not really purple. From what I can tell, it's a color of regality. Pride really does seem to be Yamato Man's focus, as even his name, Yamato, comes from the name of the clan who unified the majority of Japan together. For the first time, that is. Around the Kofun era, the Yamato tribe became strong and ousted any other clan in Japan, and believing they were born of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, they began Japan's first imperial dynasty. There's lots more I could talk about regarding the Yamato, but let me just say they were probably one of the most influential, powerful, and memorable clans of Japan. So does Yamato Man well represent Japan? You bet your Zori he does! Ooh, and that's all of them. I need to cool down for a second before wrapping everything up. So all in all, I would say that this game really does pack quite a bit of culture into it. And while I still hold Mega Man 5 as my favorite of all time, I think 6 deserves a lot more praise than it's been given. If you want to check it out for yourself, you can find it in Nintendo's 3DS and Wii Virtual Console. So give it a try and see for yourself. A big thanks again to Verez and his masterful music remixes, and don't forget to tune in next time for the next episode of Game Exchange. I think I'm going to take a nap after all that. So until next time, this is Gaijin Goombah signing out. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to check out my channel for other shows and commentaries, and also be sure to check out other videos by the Game Theorist Matt, Pat, Ronnie, and myself. And be sure to give us a sub. It helps us a lot more than you know.